Warning: this podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Our Anime Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about Kyoukai. With me I have sort of Becker.
I'm just here to host the hangout. I'm not gonna really say much.
Also look pretty.
And, just hang out with his friends, he wants to be here with us.
Yeah.
And we also have Fate Steel Taylor.
I am here to be friends with Becker, and also talk about Chronological, but mostly be friends with Becker.
Sinris.
Kind of gay, fam.
I
don't know your intentions, honestly.
I'm just
Wow,
here
guys,
for the
it's
anime.
cool that
Becker
you-
has nothing to do with it.
It's cool that you're friends, but you guys just talked over Sinris's introduction, so...
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh shit! Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
This
Sinris.
is why I
You know
don't
what?
like- this is
I'm
why
not gonna
I'm
say
just
anything
here
for
for
the
the
rest of
anime.
the podcast. There we go.
Alright, so Sinris, you have anything you want to say?
Nope, that's it.
Cool.
You didn't miss much.
And we also have or Steve, as he's more consistently called.
Yes, hello. I'm here to make some enemies.
Oh wow, that's gonna start soon. So, but before we make enemies, though, we're gonna go through the movies in release order. So we're not gonna start with the big fight. So without further ado, let's jump into it and start talking about the first Kyoukai film.
Overlooking View.
Overlooking View. Yep. So yeah, what were you guys' thoughts on that movie?
Why don't we start with Steve, since we know you're going to start ripping it up
Okay,
later.
first movie wasn't bad. That was actually my third favorite, personally.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought it was a great introduction to the series. I thought it set the atmosphere really well. It introduced all the characters fairly fluently, even though we didn't know everything about them at that point, of course.
Right. Alright, I personally appreciate it for all of those reasons. Like, as on my first watch, it just got me curious about the show, but I didn't feel particularly invested because a lot of what there is to be invested in the first movie, it doesn't do a good job of making you understand, so I can understand some people who didn't like it from that. I personally just enjoyed it because it made me curious, and then later on it's just great on the rewatch because you pick up so much more stuff.
I think the mindset you have going into the first movie is like the number one determining factor of how much you're going to enjoy it. Because if you go into it expecting a movie, you're not going to enjoy yourself. But if you think of the series as like a 7-episode series with hour to 2 hour long episodes, then it makes a lot more sense because you're not expecting a whole story just from the first installment.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes a whole lot of sense. I definitely agree with that. I was going into it under the assumption that it was a series and not going to be a complete film. I don't know what I would have thought had I been like, this is supposed to be conclusive?
Yeah, that was me actually. So I went into this a couple of years ago. Me and my cousin was over. We were like, let's watch a series that like neither of us has seen. And I was like, oh, Kyoukai seems fun, and we could watch like, because he was only going to be there for like 2 days over Thanksgiving break. I was like, we could watch like 2 or 3 of the movies and we'll be fine.
Little did you know.
So that was the mindset I went into it. But I will say, 17, you touched upon it, how much better it is on a rewatch. I recently rewatched it once it was released on Amazon Prime and not just Anime Strike.
Mm-hmm.
And rewatching it, I think that's very true. You do pick up on a lot more of the details, and it actually was a lot more intriguing, even though I already knew everything that was going to happen.
Yeah, I very much feel that, because I, like, in the first thing, you don't even, like, because I didn't know, like, anyone's names that well yet, so I didn't recognize that Shiki was terrified of Mikia jumping off from the building, like, throughout the entire thing. I didn't pick up on that at all on
Right.
my first watch, or, like, or like, really understand what the... I mean, obviously, you have no idea what the hell's going on with, like, Shiki's arm, or, like, any of that shit. Like, that's just all, like, out of fucking nowhere. Which I think is what the movie was meant to do. It was meant to make you curious about the entire series, and then also, I think, have, like, a lot of nice little things that you can look back to on the rewatch and be like, oh, I see what they were doing here.
I think the strongest point of the first movie, though, even above and beyond like the stuff you notice upon rewatching, is how well, not like the literal first scene, but like the first scene with Shiki in it does to establish her character. When Mikia like comes into her apartment and comes in and she's living in this like absolutely bare wasteland with nothing but like a mattress on the floor and a phone and he tries to like give her ice cream, and she tells him to fuck off. And the only thing in her refrigerator is just bottles of water. It's like
Yeah.
Bottles of water and 2 things of strawberry Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
yeah,
What a
It's-
healthy diet.
Well,
it's the most barren, like not depressing really, but inhospitable environment you can possibly establish with like the interior of someone's bedroom.
right.
Yeah.
Right. I also really appreciate that scene for what it set up later in the movie, because I think the actual scene where she eats the ice cream is really well done in its own. Its own
We
way. I
laugh,
think
but
that-
it's actually really sweet and sentimental, especially on a rewatch when you understand like the bond between Shiki and Mikia.
Yeah, and like what that means, because at first it's just like, why the hell is she putting herself through this shit to try and eat like frozen ice cream? that
Right, when she
doesn't
only
like?
has one arm available.
Yeah, and it's just like, what the hell? But like,
Also, her poor thighs, because that's like ice cream, and
That's
she's
gotta
just
be
like
cold.
not wearing pants, and she's like holding it in between her thighs. I'm like,
Oh, was
like
she?
if I just hold it
Oh
in my
God.
hands for a while, like like the ice starts to be like really cold.
mhm.
So I was like, dang, like that is some magical shit you got going on there.
She's committed to eating this ice cream that she doesn't even like.
But no, I mean, the first movie I will say is so much better on a rewatch, especially if you go into that mindset like I did, in which in that the sense that they're like standalone, not so much standalone, or that they're like a movie after movie, kind of like Star Wars is, and that you're going to have like a resolution kind of hinted at in the beginning.
Right.
But I think one of the things I want to talk about is just how gorgeous it looked for 2007, and that's something I don't think I recognized when I first watched it.
Oh yeah, I still think it is probably my visually favorite show from Ufotable, even though Fate Stay Night has a lot, or Unlimited Blade Works has a lot you can say for it. For example, in terms of like what it looks like, I just feel like for Kara no Kyoukai, you have so much that's going on in terms of like how well the directing is working, how well it just is throughout like almost its entire runtime. There are a few moments you can point to where the animation isn't fantastic, but yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean 2007, like in general, was a good year for anime too. Like because that was
Oh, yeah.
Code Geass and Gurren Lagann as well. So it's just like, and this like man, like if you see like a 2006 anime show outside of like Haruhi, and then you see like any of those three, you're just like, what the fuck was in the water in Japan that like caused this
Yeah.
increase in animation?
So just for the timeline, I'm not fully aware of.
Oh yeah,
how
of like
far-
what chronological order is. So this is
Well,
the
Fourth one.
fourth movie.
chronologically.
Yeah.
Right, no, sorry, not for the timeline of the release dates. So this was 2007.
Oh, okay.
How long did it take from the first to the last?
About 3 years, I think. For the
Okay.
like main 7, I think we're within 3 years of each other, and then
Right.
like the other ones came out a couple years later.
Yeah, actually, movie 7 came out in 2009. I just looked it up. So 2 years thereabouts, and then the other ones were coming out for like a little ways after. But
Yeah, like I know between 1 and 2 was like under a month in between.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then same thing with 2 and 3, and then 4 came out, I want to say like half a year after 3.
That's
Yeah,
not
I-
bad pacing though.
Yeah. And then 5 took a couple months after that as well, which is
They
really
put them out
surprising.
really fast.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it would be even possible to find this information, but it would be cool to actually look into the production history of this show, because it has like a different director for basically every single movie. It's
Oh.
just absolutely goddamn mad in terms of like the production schedule and all of that stuff. And UFO Table, as I'm being told, hadn't really done that much before this show. So how the hell did they get this project and just ace it like that?
Right. Well, they
Um,
had done the PS Vita openings for the Fate Stay Night, or
Mhm.
PS2, sorry, PS2 openings for Fate Stay Night. I want to say Sinris, you probably know better than I do.
Yes, for the I'm blanking on what the like re-released subtitle was, but they did.
Rialto Nua.
And those all Rialto Nua, that's it. Yeah, and they look really good.
Yeah, so I think probably because, it's same Nasu, same type moon, they were probably like, hey, you did such a good job with the openings, do you want to handle these as well? And then they
Mhm.
were like, yeah, sure. I kind of wish, though, that they would, like, first of all, let us know how that production schedule worked out, because that'd be really cool. And
Yeah.
maybe they had like different teams working on, like, rotating. So like, yeah, team A working on movie 1, team B working on movie 2, and then team A, like, one team working on the even and one team working on the odds.
Right.
Mm.
But I kind of wish they would stick to this production schedule for the Heaven's Feel movies, because those are also not a complete, like, movie in each one, and it's gonna
Yeah.
take a while for each movie to come out. So,
I
man,
still
we
need to
just-
watch Heaven's Feel. I'm really hype.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Because from what everyone says, it's the best Fate arc. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but
So, moving back to the first movie, Overlooking View. So when you first watch it, the antagonist Fujo Kirie, how did she come off to you then? And then in retrospect, how does she come off to you once you've seen like the other villains in the series?
That's an interesting thing to think about. So yeah, when I first watched it, I was just kind of confused because, like, I didn't understand, like, how the whole, like, Mystic Eyes thing was supposed to work, or, like, how, or kind of really any of that when I watched the first movie. And so obviously, like, leading up to, her death, I don't think it's easy to be aware of what her character is until Shiki kills her and you get that conversation with Toko. And so after that, and then also I didn't realize that the person that she was talking about seeing in the hospital was Mikia at that point.
Right.
And so
All things you pick up later.
yeah, that's another thing that you only really pick up on the rewatch, I feel like, because you know almost nothing about Mikia or his harem-forming powers.
Which are impressive. Like, Shiro has nothing.
Which is really
Mikia.
interesting, because I feel like it's hard. It's almost like the first time I watched through, I didn't notice the degree to which that was happening, and then like the second time I was like, "What the actual hell?" Though.
Every
Everyone
single female
wants him.
character except Toko in the entire series falls in love with Mikia.
And Toko even
Yeah.
wants him as an assistant. Like, so. Oh man, I mean, it's weird too, right? Because the thing with most harem protagonist powers they're usually the main character, right? But here we see most of the things through the viewpoint of Shiki. So I guess on like a first watch, it might not be as prevalent to see.
Yeah, and I mean, also there's the fact that it's not a huge influence on the show each individual instance is an influence, but it's not like, hey, everyone likes this guy, and doesn't like beat you over the head with that, like,
Right.
like a lot of more actual harem-y shows do.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so what was the point that you were making about the villains, Senris?
Well, it was partially just out of curiosity, partially
Yeah.
also, and I think Fujo Kirie, while she is definitely the least memorable antagonist in the series, does a good job of setting the tone for what to expect from like the emotional conflicts of the series, because she's initially like a supernatural phenomenon. You don't even realize she's a person until after Shiki kills her.
Right.
Because before that, she's just like this ghost that's mind controlling people. And then they explain how she was like sick and how she learned how to like detach her spirit from her body in order to like no longer be confined to her hospital bed and all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
which-
also...
Sorry. I was also gonna say she's like the last, to me. Well, I guess Fujino to an extent, but like the last sympathetic antagonist. Like Fujino too, right? Obviously, because Fujino went to hell and like back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Without going through like the shit that Fujino went through. And like it also sets up the whole point where like it's weird, right? Because Fujino and Mitsuru both, while their antagonists aren't killed, even though they have like very sympathetic past and whatever, but like that same courtesy was not extended here.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is weird, right? Because like, you know, like between, I don't know, the bomber and the one who's like literally twisting people to death, like you'd think like, you know, this one would also either get the same fate as them, or like those two would
Well,
also be like killed. But
I think part of the interesting facet of it, though, is that it's not that Shiki kills her. That Shiki only really kills the one character throughout the entire show.
right.
But it's by her own choices that she chooses that she decides she can't make it and go on at that point, which is also interesting because I think the conversation with Toko is Toko kind of trying to talk her down from it, to be like, hey, you're not a threat to anyone anymore. You can kind of just keep going if you want to,
Right?
But she's not having it because she just can't like kind of see past that.
Right. And that's what I was getting at, because I think that the purpose of Fujo Kirie in the first movie is that she's a foil to Shiki in a way that doesn't really come across at first, because you don't know anything about the qualities of Shiki that she's
Or
reflecting.
Shiki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the fairly infamous Toko monologue about the difference between flying and floating is getting at, because although it sounds like absolute nonsense, the general idea is that they're both means of escape from a situation that you don't know how to deal with, but floating is something you do when you don't have a sense of purpose, and flying is something you do when you do have a sense of purpose. And Shiki and Kyrie were both basically, like, Toko compares them to the dolls that she makes. Like, they were empty with no direction. And Kyrie tried to fly, but was unable to, like, keep up with the example that Mikia set for her, and ended up falling.
Right.
Whereas Shiki goes through the whole movie more or less, or at least like the whole first half of the series, just floating without any direction before she ends up finding something that she is capable of, like, trying to fly towards.
Right, which also kind of gets to the end of the movie, which I feel like is a blink if you'll miss it moment, but who here thinks that they smash?
Whoa, wait.
I'm gonna have to pass.
Okay,
I've never thought about that one.
So you have the final scene with where Shiki asks Mikia to stay over, and it just kind of like cuts
Oh,
past.
oh, yeah.
And, like
they
like your
don't.
first time watching through, it just kind of like blinks by because you have no idea how much is built up before then.
Right. I'm gonna go with a no on that one.
Especially after watching movie 7, and like all like there's that famous meme, right, with like Shiki, like the screenshots of Shiki trying to like.
Okay, so
this is it.
So
The
how
romantic
I-
conclusion.
I had actually interpreted this, and I could be completely off base on this after rewatching, is that starting with around like probably not long after movie 3 in terms of chronologically, their relationship becomes more intimate, and the show just chose not to be direct about that. I could be completely off base on that, but
I
but yeah,
think
we can get to we can get to what I think about like what's going on in movie 3 and when we get there. But
Sure.
Yes.
All right. Are we ready to jump ahead to movie 2, or does anybody else have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so for movie 1, I feel like for me it just kind of set up movie 2. It kind of set up movie 2, and movie 2 is where I started liking the show actively. I was just intensely kind of fascinated by, and I know a lot of people are just weirded out by how Mikia was acting throughout the entire show, but I found it to be just like really interesting. I found his character to be the most interesting thing throughout that show, even though it's
That
such
is a hot opinion.
yeah, I know it is. Even though it's such like a highlight movie for Shiki, I think they both were fantastic in that movie. But I was incredibly fascinated by. This is more on a rewatch thing. The first time through, I was more curious about Shiki. When I was rewatching it just now, I found Mikia to be incredibly interesting in movie 2, because I think we get in 2 and 6 a lot of insights into his characters that I hadn't really noticed before.
Yeah, like how dedicated he is to staying out in the cold till.
Well, so what I think is interesting is you have these little hints, right, where Daisuke, his brother, I guess,
Brother or
is-
cousin?
brother or
Cousin,
cousin
I
or
think.
some cousin, okay, yeah, but is always like prodding and asking him about what's going on about what's going on in the murders and asking him for answers. And so I'm pretty sure, because they never actually explicitly state what Miki's origin is. They just say he couldn't hurt anyone, right?
Right.
After this rewatch, I'm nearly positive that his origin is truth. Or something along the lines of that concept. Because you consistently see him just kind of seeing to the heart of things in a way that no one else really can, which makes him a fucking weirdo 99% of the time. But that's also why he's capable of, in addition to being head over heels for her, just being like, yeah, no, Shiki didn't kill anyone. And I think that there's something more to that than just him being a teenager in love with a sociopath. Or not so much a sociopath, but...
That is a really generous interpretation that I wish I could agree with.
Yeah.
Okay, what's...
I mean, Nasu was what, in high school when he wrote these?
Okay, so why...
wow, really?
I think so.
Oh.
Senris probably knows.
I know...
I think he came up with the concept.
He started them around then. I don't know how old he was when they were published.
Right.
Okay, so how do you interpret Miki's character's actions throughout all of this? Just him being a goddamn idiot, or
Well,
Pretty
I
much,
think
yeah.
I think Miki's role basically I think that the only character who matters in the entire series is Shiki. And trying to think about why anybody else does anything is a waste of time.
I kind of disagree, but we can get into that as we move further, because I think Miki is a legitimately really good character, especially after this rewatch.
The issue with Mikia is that I would like to believe that he I know a lot of people suggest that he's like equally messed up as much as Shiki is, and he's like obsessive and everything. But I'm pretty sure, and this is judging by Nasu's style of writing across other mediums as well, is that Mikia is just like the ultimate white knight character.
Yeah.
And I think the supporting evidence that I have for saying that he's not obsessive is getting into movie 5 a bit, but like when he comes back from being away and he finds like some other random ass guy like living in Shiki's apartment with her, he's like, oh, that's weird, and then leaves.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't get defensive. He doesn't even seem to get curious.
Yeah, I think it's hard to call him obsessive when we have Leo in the series.
Yeah, well, but so I want to get back to Toko for a minute, because so Toko says at the very beginning in the first movie that Mikia just finds her, right? Just out of nowhere. She has magical barriers around to keep normal people from getting to her, and he just finds her. She continuously gives him tasks of, hey, find this thing. That's what he always does. He kind of ends up doing like some degree of detective work throughout the entire thing. I think there's a more I don't know, a more interesting thread going on than just him being interested in Shiki when he's kind of seeing these things in her. Because you see a similar thing with a lot of the characters that he talks to, where he seems to be able to cut to the heart of their issues. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely off base on this, but I think he actively is kind of the most socially perceptive, I guess, character in the show.
I agree, but I have a hard time saying whether that's because that's like his character, or whether because he's just like the Mary Sue perfect boy.
But is he a Mary Sue? Okay, so
Gary Stu.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not as much of a Gary Stu as Shiro is, let's say, to bring in another Nasu work.
Well, Shiro's a different beast almost. I mean, they do have similarities in some ways.
Because like Shiro is actively the one saving their ass all the time, right?
Whereas
Shiki.
Mikia can't really do anything himself. He just kind of can see the way to make it to situations, I guess.
This is something that Nasu has actually talked about, is that he makes a conscious effort to like subvert the like typical gender roles of an action story.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
You have like the main character being like the tough guy who saves the girl. And instead he has like the female leads are always like the most competent, most powerful ones,
Oh.
and then they have like this goony ass boy following them around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
And-
say, yeah, because it's like he almost fits into the action movie girlfriend stereotype.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah, you're not actually wrong on that front. That's very interesting.
and I think he has mixed success on that front.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of the times you do end up with these like totally useless, powerless boys still being like, "Oh, I know you're 100 times more competent than I am, but you're a girl, so I have to save you."
Oh, fate route. Oh,
So-
fate route.
Yeah,
It's not always executed well, but he does make a conscious effort to do that, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think that's also true in Fate Prototype, which, like, correct me if I'm wrong, was like what he wanted to do before they were like, no, you need more girls.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So I think it is. I actually do like it because it's nice, right? Because like he's the kind and caring one. He's the one who like goes out and like gets the flowers, right? And he's the one who visits her all the time, which is like usually what the action star girlfriend would be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like Shiki, not Shiki, is like the like cold, abrasive one, like fuck all y'all. I'm doing my own shit my way. I'm not gonna even tell any of y'all what I'm doing, kind of deal.
Mm.
Which is especially true in movie 2, where Shiki doesn't tell people. So like, because like that's the whole premise, right? Why like movie 2 and movie 7 are the way that they are, because Shiki didn't tell Shiki what was going on.
Yeah.
So-
Mhm.
This, I think, is a detail that's really easy to miss, but is
Mhm.
like critical to understanding Shiki as a
Right,
character.
that they don't necessarily have access to each other's memories, and when Shiki, the fucking all cap Shiki, dies,
Lowercase Shiki loses his memories.
yeah. So for anyone watching this, we're not saying male Shiki or female Shiki because we're assholes. There's Shiki and
Just
there's
real nice.
Shiki.
So yeah, no. So yeah, I don't know. So movie 2, I think one of the most frustrating things for me watching movie 2 the first time was how long it took to get to, because like it's called, right, Garden of Sinners Chapter 2 Murder Speculation Part A,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, Murder Speculation Part B will be really soon. No.
I'm glad I looked at that ahead of time.
Yeah. No. It's the chronologically first movie is part 1, and the chronologically last movie is part 7, because that makes
so
yeah.
much sense. But
yeah.
On
Yeah.
to movie 3 then, which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
a beast
Movie
in its
3.
own right.
Yeah. Movie 3 is actually, I don't know, it's one of my favorites of the films, just because I personally think it conveys the emotional struggle of the villain very, very well.
Oh, for sure.
So for me, movie 3 was the one where I was like, okay, now I get the series, now I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. For me, and just like a quick glance at Mal as well, movie 3 was like the movie where I was like, am I gonna drop this shit? Because I was
Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, this is super edgy. Like the
I mean,
opening
yeah.
scene- yeah. Like the
Yeah.
opening gang rape scene, I was like, is this necessary? Like, I know you guys aren't restricted by TV censorship, so you're doing this, but really? Yeah,
Yeah.
and just like looking at the mouse scores, I feel like this has the widest spread of all the movies that I've seen. Like there are like people who have given it a 3. Someone dropped it and gave it a 2. It's like 58 minutes, Pam. How'd you drop it?
I mean, I guess there's a point when you see that and you're just like turned off by the extreme violence, which I'm not. I wouldn't judge anyone for. That movie hurts at times.
Mhm.
Which I mean, especially like just
Hey.
opening up with that scene.
Yeah, it gives you a remaining sense of pain.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really appreciated what that movie did. Just because I really didn't want Fujino to die. I kind of wanted her to succeed at murdering all of those people, even though she had started killing innocents at some point. And so it was this kind of weird dichotomy for me where it's like, yeah, you're rooting for the heroes because she started just like wanton murder at this, like now she killed the like random dude. But at the same time, I completely am with her on the, hey, I'm gonna murder all the people who just raped me.
I mean, pretty justifiable, I would think.
Yeah, I feel like that's a relatively fair revenge plot, and so having that of Mikia trying to convince Shiki not to kill her and it not seeming like there's a path towards that, I felt like this was the first movie where on my first watch through, I understood what was going on and I was like completely invested in. I felt like.
I also, speaking of Mikia, when he meets one of his old classmates who was one of the gang members, just absolutely destroying her life. When it cuts to his face and the glasses do the anime thing where you can't see to his eyes as the dude is describing. I was like, oh shit, this dude is dead one way or the
other. Someone's gonna fuck him up.
Yeah.
This and then movie... it cuts to him on the couch. I was like, Mikio, no, you can't. I was kind of disappointed by that.
But I mean, I also think that's getting to why I think Mickey is a little bit more interesting than anything else, because he clearly is just done with this dude, right? And he says it like he almost feels like I want to just leave him out to be killed, but he kind of has this weird glitch. I don't think it's even a set of explicit ideals that he has that keeps him from murdering this person, or letting this person die. I think it's just that's Mikio, which I don't know. I don't know. To me, I think that those moments like that kind of add to his character and make him something that that's not quite just protagonist man. But
do you think there are more moments like that throughout the series? Because I do remember that moment being one where I was like, oh, this is an interesting thing for Mikia. He has something that he wants to do, and he doesn't immediately act on it, and it's not objectively presented as the best course of action in the situation.
Right. So let's kind of go back through. I need to mentally align myself back with the stuff. But yeah, I think kind of. I think in movie 6, or actually in general, his treatment of his sister, I think there's kind of an interesting thread which we can kind of get to, which there are a number of problems with that whole relationship, but
yeah.
I mean, you say problems.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we can get to that in a minute. But I do think that that when Miki is doing something that is the objectively best course of action, he's doing something that's solving a problem. As in he's trying to figure out something he doesn't know. He's very good at knowing things or intuiting things that other people are unaware of, but I'm not necessarily sure if he's such a protagonist man outside of that. He's very people smart, and he's very and he's just weirdly pacifist in a non-explicit way, which is kind of interesting. He obviously doesn't want Shiki to kill people, and he doesn't like death exactly, but I think there's to his character, especially with the rapist, where he eventually decides, of course, at the end, that the reason that he doesn't want this to happen is because he's ultimately saving her from having another person more blood on her hands, which I think is ultimately kind of dumb. She's
right. I mean, she even says in extra chorus, right? 7, 8. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which yeah. Thank you. And so I think that Mikia, by saving that one person, didn't really do that much to help her. I think that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that in extra chorus, but that's a good note, because I think that's even showing that from her perspective, she's just kind of okay.
That is actually a really good note that I had never put together, and I think does a lot to explain who Fujino is as a person.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm also. Is it ever touched on why? Well, we'll get to that in extra chorus, but yeah, there are a few questions I have from that. Which maybe Senris will know, because he's significantly more of a K&K nerd than even I am, I think.
Just a TM nerd in general. TM wizard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love the show, but my knowledge is far from encyclopedic. So yeah, do we have... Oh wait, no, there is more stuff I wanted to touch on in the third movie. Because I feel like, and I don't know why the show does this, and it's very intentional, and I feel like there's something that I'm almost missing in the subtext, because it intentionally seems to obfuscate the relationship between Shiki and Mikia almost. And I get that a lot of people go through the show and don't even understand the development that's going on because it almost hides it. And specifically, like, at the end of movie 3, they have a conversation which is really about Shiki kind of coming to be able to have something to care about again, and that being Mikia after she's kind of just come back. This is, movie 3 takes place not long after movie 4, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that's told in such a, that's, like, held in such a way that I feel like you would be hard-pressed as a first-time viewer to have any idea what it's meant to be representing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's reassuring then. Like, there have been so many things that you guys have been pointing out, and I'm like, man, I missed a lot more than I thought.
Okay. So for context, I did not love the show my first time through. I watched it through and I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. But I was not absolutely in love with it, but I just found it bouncing around in my head for a while, and then maybe half a year later, I just had so many, like, scenes from the show just keep coming up in my brain. I was like, I just need to rewatch this, and then I rewatched it, and it was one of my favorites.
Okay, that's really good to hear then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing I always really prioritize in an anime is its rewatchability, because I feel like
Yeah, same.
the better
100% same.
the more depth it has to it, the more rewatchable it is. If it's, like, very surface level, like, you watch it once through and it's great and it's fun, but it's like, I don't know,
Cool.
diet
That's it.
diet soda, like, there's no substance to it. Like,
Yeah, but there's
like, you
nothing
drink it,
wrong
it's
with diet soda either.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with diet soda. You're right, but, like, if you want, but, like, something like Haruka no Kyoukai, I did not recognize my first time watching it through that there was this depth to it, and I very much did not want to rewatch it. But it's actually funny. It was because of the Kara no Kyoukai event in Fate Grand Order, the mobile game. When the event happened in NA,
great
and, like,
event.
I was like, huh, this event is kind of, like, drawing on a lot of things. I was like, I just remembered enjoying movie 5 and 7 so much
Mm-hmm.
but then I was like, huh, I wonder, like, I'm trying to remember more of the story, and, like, going back and watching through thanks to Amazon Prime, I was like, dang, like, there is a lot more depth and nuance to these characters than I originally thought.
Yeah, I felt like I had almost the exact same experience where I enjoyed it. I, like, made it through, was like, okay, movie 5 is a fucking masterpiece, but, like, okay, that's gonna disappear from my brain for the most part. But then I don't know, I just felt like it didn't disappear from my brain and stuff stuck around, and it became just retroactively a more important show to me. And then on the rewatch, it was like, oh.
Right. Yeah.
I do want to
especially
speak.
Fujino, I think, was much better to me on a rewatch than it was initially. But Sinris, you were going to say something before I cut you off.
I do want to speak to what Teen was just saying about, like, obfuscating the relationship between Shiki and Mikia here.
Mhm.
And I think that this is... Well, actually, I'm going to hold off on this until after 4, because I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Oh, okay,
I was
that
gonna
makes
talk about
sense.
some of the developments there. So,
Yeah.
should we move on to
Move on to
that
4?
one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So
Alright.
4, which was yeah. It
4
was-
happened.
Hollow Shrine.
4 yeah, 4 happened. 4 felt mostly just info dumping, kind of.
I felt like 4 could have been summed up in a couple lines of expository dialogue. Personally, it's to me.
4 was
Yeah.
the shortest by far. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, at
45
46 minutes,
Or, yeah. I think perhaps it was because of the expository dialogue that I enjoyed it so much. Even if it could have summed things up better, there was just
Mhm.
so much confusion going on, this being my first rewatch. There was just so many
Right.
questions that I had that when it
Is that
finally
4
just
is the
put it
movie
out
of
there,
answers. Yeah.
yes, it was so satisfying. It was like, oh, okay, this pieces together with this. That's how this thing works. Okay.
Gotcha.
And it just, it helped a lot.
that makes
I
sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. First time watch it could be better, right? Because, like, if you're trying to be invested in it, because it explains a lot of shit. But on a rewatch, when you already know all the shit, it's like,
I can see how that would get boring and repetitive, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoyed it just fine in my first time through. It's kind of my least favorite of the main 7 now, but it definitely wasn't on my first watch through.
Even after rewatching, I still think it's better than 6.
Okay, well, we can get into 6 in a minute, because 6 has actually
there.
gone up a decent amount in my book, since I hated 6 on my first watch through. Like, I actively disliked that film.
6 has also gone up on my subsequent watches, but not that much.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm ever going to watch 6 again in order for it to go up on my rate.
Would you watch it for the ED, perhaps?
I think if you're braced for what 6 is, it's not as bad as it is when you're completely unprepared for what 6 is.
I think you just need to be on drugs to enjoy it.
I just don't die of an overdose. Yeah, no, I knew it was gonna be the Sus Sister one. That's what everyone had told me.
Mm-hmm.
But directed by the guy who would go on to direct Unlimited Blade Works.
Oh.
Wait, is there...
I totally see that in the fight scene, but we're getting ahead of ourselves again.
We are getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are we done with movie 4? Because the next one's movie 5.
Yeah, the next one's movie 5, which will...
Real briefly, I just want to say that 4 also has the singing scene, which might be one of my favorite scenes. I know it's just kind of funny for contrast, but it was really enjoyable.
Uh-huh.
And I know they had to do it, but it doesn't make me any less upset that the Crunchyroll versions of the movies replace Singing in the Rain with just
When
like
I heard that, I
tunes.
was so
Oh,
disappointed.
yeah, so I wasn't sure if that was, like, actually a thing, but when I watched the Amazon Strike, or Amazon Prime version, not Anime Strike, fuck Anime Strike, thank God it's that, I was like, wait, he's just humming some mindless tune, and then, like, I rewatched the copies I have that were totally not illegally downloaded, and I was like, yeah,
when you watched the
couple of those.
Blu-rays you imported from Japan.
yes.
Yeah,
precisely.
I do think that as much as Singing in the Rain, like the first time it comes up in the second movie, seems like just like, oh, haha, it's raining and he's singing that. I actually think it has thematic relevance to all the films. I think it's a cool refrain to have coming through.
Right.
Just because it's a song that's generally about kind of finding joy in a bunch of shit, which is what the show kind of is altogether.
Yeah, and also I feel like they probably just didn't have the licensing rights to it. That
Yeah,
makes sense, 'cause,
probably.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like, it's very different, right? Because of international regulations and like statutes and stuff. So like in Japan, I know one of the most prime examples is Terrace House. That popular show has Taylor Swift's "We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together" as the theme song, whereas like on Netflix,
Wait, what?
it's completely different. Yeah, and on Netflix, it's like a completely different random song because licensing and copyright stuff is really a headache for like legal teams to hash out and like really expensive. So like most times creative directors are just like, fuck it, like whatever.
And I mean, that makes sense. I don't think the losing of Singing in the Rain is such a huge change. It's just a little bit sad because I do think that it fit there for that song.
And I also grew up with that movie. I watched Singing in the Rain hundreds of times as a child.
Oh, wow.
So when it just fucking appeared in this edgy ass anime, that was the best.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we move on to 5, I do want to like talk about like this first act in the series for a second.
Okay.
Because I kind of like divide up the series into 2 halves, with movie 5 being like the fulcrum between them.
Okay.
So for the first bit is all about like slowly, we as viewers slowly learn to understand like what the deal is with Shiki, like what's going on with her, what's her past, what are her powers. And I think the reason that they're presented in the non-chronological order is that we are discovering Shiki at the same rate that she's discovering herself throughout those movies.
Cool. Yeah, I like that interpretation.
Because like when it starts out in movie 1, what we see of Shiki is just like this like cold, apathetic, like supernatural killing machine who doesn't seem to give a shit about anything, like only visibly shows emotion when she's fighting. Like even when she's upset and eating the ice cream, like she doesn't show it on her face. And if you didn't know like the significance that like Mikia gave her the ice cream, you would in no way like identify that as like Shiki at her lowest emotional point in maybe the entire series.
Right.
And then you go into movie 2 and you see her past, but you only see the bits of it that lowercase Shiki remembers. You don't see like uppercase Shiki's perspective, except for when he's talking to Mikia, which leads you to believe that Shiki was probably the murderer and that Mikia is crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
Then you go into movie 3 and you see Shiki like basically like salivating at the idea of getting to fight Fujino and like fight someone else with the same powers and be able to kill someone like that. And you're like, oh, like the personality that kills things is in control.
Right.
Until you get right up to the end and she stops herself short of actually finishing off Fujino and ends up saving her life instead by killing the tuberculosis. Then, once you are sufficiently confused, it actually explains things in movie 4. You find out that uppercase Shiki died, like, immediately after 2 ended.
Mm-hmm.
That lowercase Shiki doesn't remember anything about him, so, like, the gap in between 2 and 4 is as unknown to her as it is to us. And that, like, losing that other internal personality makes her feel empty, and she is thus choosing to emulate uppercase Shiki in order to like fill the void within herself, which is why she acts cold and aggressive and like she wants to fight and kill everything but never actually follows through and kills anybody up until the end.
Right. That is a good summary. Thank you.
Yeah. Nope. Okay, that's the pot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's what I wanted to get at when you were saying they're like obfuscating the relationship between them in movie 3, because from Shiki's perspective, like she had just decided that she was going to be like an aggressive murderer, and that was like what she was going to do with herself, and then she finds herself unable to kill Fujino, and then speaks to Mikia and is like, oh, like this guy is something from like before the accident that I cared about. And now, like, murder Shiki isn't in me. Maybe this is, like, something I can actually look forward to in my life now. And you don't understand any of it at the time, but that's what their conversation at the end of the movie is.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that now, and I like that interpretation of why they make it so confusing. Which I had been thinking about for a while, and it just had never really clicked for me, because on the one hand, it's kind of cool as the viewer. I like shows that are, like, presented as mysteries, and so it was kind of fun for me to be watching Kara no Kyoukai and trying to figure out Kara no Kyoukai as I watched it. But I didn't necessarily understand the thematic intent, and I like the idea that it's that it's you kind of jumping into Shiki's life at the same rate that she is figuring things out herself. That's cool.
And that's why 5, 6, and 7 are all in chronological order from that point forward, except the flashback when she finally learns the missing parts of uppercase Shiki's memories from movie 2.
Right. So is there anything else you wanted to add, or can we move on to movie 5?
Nope, that's it.
Cool.
Nice. That was a good recap, though.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. That'll be helpful for anyone following along who is confused by the show, which I'm sure is like half of everyone who's going to be watching this. So yeah. Yeah, if you could give us maybe a recap once we get to the end again, just so that people are with us, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, movie 5. There's so much to say about movie 5, and not a lot that hasn't already been said, since it's easily the most popular of them, I feel like.
Yes.
Because
it's 63 on Mel.
Yeah, like even people who don't like the show generally, I feel like, love movie 5.
It used to be in Mal top 10, like back when it came out.
Oh
yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So yeah,
used to be up there too, but I didn't know Kara no Kyoukai 5 was there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun movie, and it's like perfect for a lot of the casual audience.
Yeah, and it's, oh man, I mean, there's so much to it, just because you can get so much more on the rewatch, but it's really fun the first time through, and it's also, in my opinion, the best paced section of the show. In terms of just flowing together and being generally enjoyable as just like a movie, because I feel like the rest of the series has a lot of like kind of awkward stops and starts, which are cool if you're someone who's like into it for the mystery and stuff like that. But as a more casual viewer, movie 5 just rolls from thing to thing at such a cool pace.
Occasionally confusing pace. Like with the repeated
pace.
scenes with Toko showing up with the briefcase, and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, and then also has the most badass finale of all fucking time.
Oh, yeah. Also, let's not forget the hallway fight scene with the zombies.
Yo, the hallway fight scene is maybe like the best scene in the whole series.
Oh,
really?
I think so.
It's up there. The bridge collapsing in 3 was like my favorite, but this is definitely, it comes right behind that.
Yeah. For me personally, actually, the end of 3 was my favorite action scene too, partially because of the soundtrack.
For me, it's probably of the fight scenes. I think it's actually 5. Because first of all, it looks so gorgeous.
Ugh, yes.
It's so fluid. The fights are great, like, and just Shiki going from one to the other to the other to the other.
That's fair.
And it kind of reminds me a little bit like the famous Old Boy fight. It's not all one take, of course, like the one panning shot. But like I was like, I wonder like if this influenced Marvel at all in their Netflix TV shows and all their hallway fights they have now. Which but no, I mean, and also like the way the hallway fight ends, right? With her meeting Araya, I want to say, or Soren. Yeah. And like him like jumping off the thing and her just like not hesitating for a second and just like leaping off after him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's great. With Yuki Kaijura in the background. Oh,
so yeah. Honestly, though, the hypest moment of all of that was fucking Toko's exposition while the elevator scene was happening.
Oh, yeah. I'm so bad.
No, Toko, after Cornelius Alba like crushes her head, and he's busy like slamming Mikia's face into the wall over and over again, and then the other Toko body just walks in the door and is like, "Sup, fucker," and opens her briefcase, and the demon comes out and eats him. That's the hypest moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and the soundtrack throughout all of 5 was of course on point. I mean, it's always on point, but like it was all just set up to be some of the most hype that you can get out of a movie.
Toko, by the way, is an absolutely nuts character, and like those couple scenes in this movie are the only bit of it that like most people are aware of. But if you have any interest in like diving more into Nasuverse, start with Toko because she is insane.
Interesting. So
she's also in Tsukihime, right?
Yeah, that's what I've seen a little bit of. Like
her sister is one of the main characters of Tsukihime, but Toko is the villain of Mahotsukai no Yoru, which is where her sister is the main character.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, because it does kind of seem to be hinted at that she's like the bitter child, and her sister is actually just like the good one almost.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really curious about her because they do so much with her.
Hinted at in Heaven's Feel, if I'm correct.
Yeah, in one of the endings of Heaven's Feel, she isn't named, but she does play an important role.
Interesting.
So for those that might not be very familiar, like what is all in this universe?
The Nasuverse? Ooh, yes, what is it in the Nasuverse?
So anything called Fate, then Tsukihime, which was a visual novel that was written before Fate Stay Night, Mahotsukai no Yoru, which is about the Aozaki sisters, and then there are a couple other like small side things, but those are the most important ones. And
Kara no Kyoukai, of course. Yeah. Melty Blood, I've heard.
Melty Blood, I think, is like a Tsukihime sequel / fighting game.
I mean, it also has like Shiki in it. I haven't actually played like much Melty Blood. I played a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah.
See, I did not know about the Nasuverse.
It also has Carnival Phantasm. Best entry of the Nasuverse.
Like, unironically, yes, the best Fate entry.
Yeah. No, it's great. Actually, so side thing, because Sinris, I think you were the one who was asking me about this before the thing, and I was like, I want to save this conversation for the podcast. But I had seen Fate Zero when I watched, I'd seen Fate Zero when I watched Kara no Kyoukai. But I had no clue that they were connected. Like, literally none. And when I learned that they were connected, it was after my rewatch of Kara no Kyoukai, and it blew my fucking mind.
Fun fact, the Cornelius Alba is in Fate Zero.
Yeah, I know.
The flashback scene with Kiritsugu.
Yeah. And so seeing all those connections was really cool, because I was just like, oh, these two shows that I really like are actually in the same universe. Well, that's... what the fuck? And so then all the stuff with, like, Origin started to make more sense, and, like...
Right. And Aoki, or whatever however you pronounce his name, was the director for Fate Zero and the first movie of Kara no Kyoukai.
Interesting. Cool. But yeah, so yeah, the point being that you don't have to be a giant Nasuverse nerder to even know that it's in the Nasuverse to enjoy Kara no Kyoukai.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, there is
too much in the Nasuverse.
There's a lot of knowledge that you are going to be missing out on, and after I learned that there was a universe, that was when I started, like, binging bits of the wiki, although I still don't know anything. Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
Does that explain sort of the rules to magic in this universe? Like, how much is explained behind how different powers work? Because that was only ever really touched on here, I felt.
So,
and
it's only ever touched on. All of the details exist somewhere if you're okay with a lot of complicated shit. Most of what I ended up reading up on was the root, because the root was so important to both like Kara no Kyoukai and the Fate section, and it's never, or at least in anything that I've read or seen, it was not properly explained.
The only time in the entire franchise you ever get, like, anything resembling an explanation of what the root is in Kara no Kyoukai Shusho, which is that, like, 7.5 movie where it's half an hour straight of Shiki monologuing about the lore.
Right.
That's,
my God,
that's the only time they ever explain the root.
Yeah, because I was reading through Heaven's Feel, being like, oh, like, they're gonna explain the root, and they're like, so the root is really important. So, and then they like, wait a second. I've been playing this fucking visual novel for 25 hours. You're gonna tell me what the goddamn root is.
And the thing that makes powers in the Nasuverse so complicated, and part of why I think it's so interesting, is that they're all, like, conceptually based. Like, even the most simple, like, cast the spell at your enemy to hurt them, like, piece of magecraft in the whole series, which is like the Gander shot, which is the thing that Rin uses all the time in Unlimited Blade Works, is not defined as, like, if this, like, energy that hurts them. It is a low-level curse that reduces the physical vitality of the target.
That's very
and
specific.
that's like the simplest spell in the entire series.
Yeah. Magic is... I've tried to read up on magic. I still have no clue how it works. I do think it's a really interesting universe, though.
He also breaks a lot of his own rules, not even including Rule Breaker. Like, the whole, like, servants can't fight humans thing, but, like, that happens a couple times in Fate. And then... So there's the question, right? Like, Shiki with her eyes can kill anything, but can Shiki kill servants?
Oh God, that's just fucking... Nasu actually confirmed that, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he was like, Shiki can kill servants when Shiki is a servant at Fate Grand Order, which totally does not...
Ryogi Shiki can kill servants. Tono Shiki, who's the main character of Tsukihime, can't. He also has Mystic Eyes of Death Perception.
Yeah, he has... so it's interesting, yeah, if you read Tsukihime, it's really interesting, because takes because Nasu didn't really like Kara no Kyoukai. It was kind of the first thing that he wrote, and he saw it as just, like, childish trash, which I think may end up even be, like, semi-correct, and that the movies adapted it into something better. Because
I think that's true.
Because I tried to read it and didn't particularly enjoy it and couldn't make it very far, and it might just be the translation, or it might be that it was actually kind of bad. But and so my personal theory is that it's entirely the fault of the adaptation that we have any good Kara no Kyoukai. But the point being that he recycled a lot of the ideas from Kara no Kyoukai into Tsukihime when he wrote that.
And Fate Stay Night as well, which is why Asagami Fujino is literally Sakura Mato.
No, there are so many like proto fake characters, like Proto Shiro in movie 5, and Proto Sakura in Fujino, like, and Proto Rin in Asaka.
Yeah, so that's why I think the original Kara no Kyoukai novels were probably just like a lot of good ideas and not that well put together, and then he just kind of took those ideas and put them into better works later. Whereas Kara no Kyoukai, to date, the movies are my favorite Nasuverse thing.
So fun fact about the Kara no Kyoukai novels. I had heard a lot about this movie franchise, and I knew there were light novels out, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll like read the LNs first before getting to the movies. And I tried reading the first LN, and it was just like, I got like maybe 10 pages in. I was like, fuck that. I'm going to go watch the anime first. What?
That is not very far.
No.
Yeah, no, I got just about as far as someone who had loved the anime. I like tried to read the LNs and was just like, eh.
So, this was before I really knew what the title was called. So I was like, Kyoukai. No. So I like went on Crunchyroll and I was like, Kyoukai no whatever. And I got the Kyoto animation show, Kyoukai no Kanata. And I was really confused at first because like the light novels were about like some detective and murder shit. And that was not at all what Kyoukai no Kanata was about.
Yeah.
So I never actually watched Kyoto no Kyoukai until like a year and a half later. And then I was like, oh, this is the LNs that I like started to read.
Oh man.
I'm impressed we made it this far without a KNK joke.
Yeah.
Good job to all of us.
Wow, yeah, that is actually semi-impressive.
I know.
Especially given like how much we've been mentioning it in like the chat and stuff.
Joke's on you. I was actually talking about Cabaneri this entire time.
Oh shit.
Cabaneri is unironically my favorite show of all time. Fuck off, everyone.
Wait,
Yeah.
17. I had so much respect for you.
No. Biba is the best villain in anime. Just throwing that out there.
I don't know if you're being serious or like if this is like when Beck's like shadow on Ready Player One to Steve.
No. I'm 100% joking. I had no idea. Enjoy Biba as a villain, but completely ironically because he saved the show from being boring. Yeah, that's its own thing.
Okay, so KMK6 then, because we all really want to talk about KMK6.
Oh boy, yeah. So yeah, KNK6 does a lot. It throws in incest. It kills the pacing in the series. It
brings the fairies and drugs. In case you thought
did it bring the drugs.
was pretty bad, like how about drugs and fairies?
Yeah.
And it also just, I don't know, feels like kind of disconnected and outside of the entire thing. Like I say that KNK6 went up in my book, but it's definitely not my favorite film out of all of them. I just kind of appreciate it for what it is more now. Which is
real talk. The first time I watched KNK6, I spent the first half a fucking hour of the movie expecting it to be like a dream sequence for Asuka, and eventually like she would wake up and we'd have like she's been like trapped in some mind prison or something, but no, it just kept going and eventually I realized it wasn't gonna stop.
Jesus.
Yeah,
So-
I cannot describe to you just how upset I was the first time through KNK6 because I had loved 5 so much and was just ready for more and was like, holy shit, this is like movie 5 out of 7. This show is just fucking on a roll. And no, not quite. But like knowing that it's going to kill the pacing, knowing that it's, I don't know why you would ever put that just for pacing reasons in between 5 and 7, because for me 5 is the action climax, 7 is the emotional climax, and then 6 is just kind of like, hey guys, I'm here.
So I think I speak for all of us when I say that Garden of Sinners, or K&K, whatever, has some really great characters, and Asuka
It's not
is
one of
definitely the best one. Oh no, I'm
Yes.
being dropped from the call.
I really hope you don't have any sisters.
I do, but she's terrible, so we'll not get into that.
So Asuka
So
is
is
the sister
Asuka.
you always
So
wish
it's
you
like
wanted.
it's like wish fulfillment. Yeah, it's like, yo, man.
You really just wanted a sister who was obsessed and in love with you.
I mean, I'm not saying that I gave Oliver Ramo a 10 because I didn't. But I did give Eramaga a 9, so.
Oh man,
Little
okay,
sisters are nice. That's all I have to say about her. She's great.
All right, so I mean, I feel like Asuka is in a lot of ways like a kind of proto Rin, if we're talking about like
Yeah. Definitely a
character
proto Tosaka, yeah.
Yeah, I've never even seen Fate, and I was like, yo, isn't this just Rin?
Looks exactly like her.
She looks exactly the same, yeah.
and I mean, she's the same. Like, I'm a magical girl tsundere. Fucking yeah.
Yeah, no, she definitely has the tsundere look down. She has the ZR. She doesn't have twin tails though, which is why she doesn't have S rank ZR. That still is ZR is an important subject, okay? But yeah, if they have the same color eyes, if she literally had twin tails instead of like the long ponytail, they would be the exact same character. I'm pretty sure most people would not be able to tell them apart.
Yep, that's accurate.
Thank you. I'm glad someone who really knows the Nasuverse agrees with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not sure if there's much to add on her. But overall, I think my opinion of the show has gone up because I do appreciate the kind of longer term showing just kind of Shiki and interacting with Mikia's sister, regardless of how much I like his sister's character, and their kind of and kind of their dynamic in the absence of Mikia. I think that is. I think that's relatively well done. I think the actual plot of the movie is fine and kind of interesting. I just wish that it didn't take place where it was in turn for my initial viewing, because I felt like it was just such a come down
Right.
of like.
It's between 5 and 7. Like,
Yeah, of just like 5 is the most monumentally important thing that happens in the show, which I mean, but that's also part of what I appreciate about Chronological Kyoukai is in terms of how Shiki is in theory one of the most powerful beings in the universe, and is more focused on a romance than her actually doing anything ever. But yeah, but still, it just felt like really, really just kind of out of place the first time through.
I get what they were trying to do with 6, which is like, I'm pretty sure at least it's Shiki like observing Asuka and like figuring out why Asuka is so in love with Mikia, and like coming to understand like, oh, so like that's what love is, and like Asuka has her whole thing about like not knowing when she fell in love with Mikia, and she tells that to Shiki at the end. It's like, oh, like that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing too.
Yeah.
And it like helps her come to term with her emotions, but like that's so little for an entire hour of.
Well, yeah, I mean, it also does lead into movie 7. For as much as I complain about it, it does have the thread about memory throughout the entire thing, which does jump you into movie 7, which is the other reason I can kind of appreciate it for what it is. Again, it could have been way better. But yeah, I don't absolutely hate the film anymore. I was mostly just like really mad at it my first time through, because I was just like, come on, you did so well like 5 minutes ago, and now you're giving me a incest fantasy plot line. Please, what are you doing?
Yeah, definitely.
And so yeah, it's still not my favorite film, but I don't think it's a bad film, and I can actively enjoy it on the rewatch now. For all of its problems.
And that's all there is to say about that.
Yup, pretty much.
Moving right along. To
Moving on
7.
to where our actual battleground is going to be. Movie 7.
Oh shit. Is this gonna be a battleground?
I feel like it is, given what Steve has said about movie 7.
We'll see.
So I'm curious to hear everyone's opinions on that. I'm gonna start off by taking a back seat on movie 7.
I liked movie 7 a lot. I don't know if you guys know this, but my entire life, when I was watching anime, I was like, boy, I just really want to watch an anime where a guy breaks his jaw eating another human being. I searched high and low throughout all 7 scenes, and eventually, in Chronological Kyoukai Movie 7, I got exactly what I was looking for. I mean, I'm joking, but also, like, where else in the world are you going to come across that?
Yeah, it's true. That's definitely part of the appeal, is just how fucking disgusting Shirazumi is.
Yeah.
Ooh, it was a scene. He did that. He ate a dude.
He eats a lot of dudes.
He eats a lot of dudes, yeah. Like, it's not, yeah. It's, yeah. No. He doesn't keep breaking his jaw, though, which is encouraging. He gains some proper technique.
Well, once his origin of consumption is awakened,
Yes.
he knows how to consume.
Yeah, true enough.
You know, some people are like, you know, like, consuming media or knowledge. He is literally consuming people, which is fine, I guess. Also, if you're into slobbering on people, like, this is your jam.
Yeah.
Real talk, though, that's a really good scene.
It's
Fucked up, but yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
fucked up.
It's such a disturbing it is. It's handled very well. I was thoroughly disturbed throughout it. I mean,
That's some of Karen Kyokai's good scenes are that was just upsetting.
how do you
Thank
have
you
that
for
much saliva in your body? That's just.
I mean, salivation is an important part of digestion. It's probably him acting in overdrive because he
true.
eats fucking people.
I wonder how long you could eat one person. Like, how many meals you could get out of them. Like, it's like, is he eating exclusively people?
Well, yeah,
Are we going, like,
that's the
typical-
question. Are you eating the person as like a side, or are they like the main course, or is it
Is
like
this
just
the
only
entire
person?
diet? 2,000 kilocalories a day of pure human?
Killing calories a day, more like.
Hey.
Hey.
Man, I wonder
Yeah.
how sharp Leo's fangs are.
I mean,
God.
to rip through flesh like that?
Do you think he could win in killing bites?
Oh, probably.
Oh god. But outside of, you know, Leo, the thing with Shiki was done well. I was very happy we finally got to part B of murder speculation. It only
right at
took
the end.
5 goddamn movies. But we find out, and like the mystery is resolved, and it looks gorgeous and amazing while doing it, and the relationship between Shiki and Mikia is handled so beautifully and wonderfully.
Yes.
Yep, I don't have that much to add to that. It is actively my favorite Karen Kyoukai film. It wasn't on my first watch, 5 was, but but now, like, after having rewatched it like multiple times, 7 is easily my favorite.
Yeah, I had the same experience.
So is this everyone's favorite then? Or...
Oh, boy.
6, 6 was pretty good.
6 was alright.
No, I think for me, I think probably 5 is 5. I feel like is my favorite purely from a technical standpoint, just because of how beautiful the directing was, like how phenomenal it was handled. And also Proto Shiro is my favorite Shiro.
Yeah,
that's
that's fair. I kind of get behind you on that. Like, I actually like Shiro, as much as he gets memed on. Like, this is a slight aside, but like, I read the fate route of the VN, and well, I found him to be annoying as fuck. I do really like him as a character.
Oh boy, I can't wait till you get to Heaven's Feel.
Alright. But yeah, it was mostly because the fate route is just like him and Saber jerking each other off on their honor boners, and it's just
Hey,
like,
not if you turn the H scenes off. Then they're just having hallucinations about dragons.
Okay, I wasn't even talking about the actual H scenes. I was talking about the fucking arc at large.
Oh, fate route.
Yeah.
Nasu's got a lot to explain, buddy.
I'm pretty sure he has actually said, like, if they ever adapt the fate route, I'm gonna basically rewrite the whole thing because it's bad.
Yeah,
But
no.
that makes sense. There's some stuff that I really like in the Fate route. I like the end of the Fate route a lot, like the last section of it, but there's a lot of shit to get there.
I do actually think it's better than Unlimited Blade Works. But
That's
As someone who loves Saber beyond any normal
And I don't
person
even
should.
care about Saber.
Yeah.
Wow, what the
No,
fuck?
I know.
I don't really care about Saber that much either. I don't know. I feel like I like Unlimited Blade Works more, but
Yeah, but it is interesting because I think that like Nasu has, because I do remember Sinros, if I'm remembering correctly, probably from the same interview where he was like, yeah, like I messed up a couple of things with like, he was like, I really wanted to hide Saber's identity and like really emphasize that she's a girl, but he probably went too far in doing so with Shiro. But which is really, because like that's one of my biggest problems with Fate Route. But it's crazy how like that really isn't too much of a thing with Kara no Kyoukai because it's Shiki centered, which we really see here because Mikia in 7 more than any of them is the action hero's girlfriend. He's like the one taken hostage. He's the one that Shiki has to save and all that.
Yeah, and he spends the entire thing following her around and trying to be important, but ends up actively fucking things up by being there.
Right.
It's true.
which yeah, the exact action action hero's girlfriend, which I don't know, I like him in that role in this movie a lot.
Right. He plays it well.
Yeah, but anyway, this is kind of what I wanted to get to also with how I feel like Mikia isn't this perfect protagonist, because Shiki wouldn't have killed Leo had it not been for him. Or at least I don't think so.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Because she would have gotten out of there eventually, I think, because she's fucking Shiki.
Right.
And she wouldn't have flipped her shit, because basically what's happening at the end of that movie is her being like, well, I had decided that I was gonna live for one dude. Cool.
Right.
Because when she just kind of assumes that he's dead, that's the end of her caring about about trying to live her life and put things back together. At least in that moment, she may have recovered had Mikia been dead at some point, but not right then. Not enough to not murder Leo.
Right.
Which yeah, I don't know. So before we get too far though, I want to hear Steve's opinions on this, because I don't. I've just been so curious all week as to why he dislikes this movie.
So, K&K number 7 is my least favorite of the entire series.
What?
There were just a number of things that really annoyed me, and part of that was just the conversations that were had. There was talk about like mercy and murder, which we had already kind of touched on. I that's not really something I'm too big a fan of. There was also just too big an emphasis, I guess, on Shiki and Mikia. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, sweet. I had always been calling him Kokuto for some reason. I don't know.
I mean, it's after Jean Cocteau.
Yeah. In any case, I thought that there was just so much emphasis on them as a duo, and the entire series, I didn't really care that much about them as a duo, and I get that goes against what it is, and so it's not really a flaw. It's just I would have liked to see other things, of course, but it was still annoying to see so much of an emphasis on. The ending was especially dimming. I don't like the endings of series, movies, shows can change my opinion of it an incredible amount, and this I thought was so very unsatisfying, having built up over 6.5 movies to get to that like last half, and just I guess I had been built up too much. There was just so much hype surrounding it, and I was like, okay, well, things happened. They lived. I would have liked to see them die.
Ooh,
Wow.
There's not enough. It does sound edgy, and my apologies there. But
No, it's fine. Now I feel bad for calling you edgy.
I am edgy at heart, so it's fine. There's not enough deaths in anime, and I thought it would have been really appropriate. I thought it would have been really fitting. It would have. I want to compare it to something, but I don't want to spoil it. But it reminded me of another ending that I disliked.
Oh.
and
Ooh,
it just
I'm curious as to what
it
you're
brought
talking
it down
about
so
now.
much.
Because there are a few shows that have upset me for similar reasons, and for some reason this wasn't one of them, like, at all.
I mean, I don't know if I would spoil you guys though, so I don't want to necessarily
okay,
give it
yeah.
in the chat. So
Yeah,
I appreciate
that's
that.
yeah,
you can
thanks.
like
But
PM
yeah,
me if you want.
but yeah, I guess we all know about the kind of ending that you're talking about that feels like it's too happy for what the show deserves, and
Mhm.
I felt like, for me, the ending of Karen Kyoukai was very much earned, and that might just be because I was very invested in the relationship throughout. Which I do think is the split on movie 7 most of the time, is that people who are really into the relationship love movie 7. People who are not so much into the relationship or the characters, it's what the fuck? Why the fuck did I just watch
Yeah.
that?
I get
Right.
that there was so much development throughout the entire series of them growing together and whatnot, but I guess I chose to stay uh, blind to that. I just tried to ignore that as much as possible in hopes that it wouldn't become too big of a thing to ignore. And that kind of blew up on me.
Yeah.
So, whoops.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so, man, I'm trying to get back to, my own thoughts on it, because,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. It's one of those things where, like, if you can't connect with one aspect of the series, then when that one aspect ends up being the most important bit, then obviously it's
Yeah.
not going to work for you.
yeah, for sure.
And I guess in more of a general tone, I suppose throughout the entire series, I have always thought of Kara no Kyoukai being good, but never specifically the best at anything. There was always like some sort of
Huh.
example of something like. I'll give you an example for movie number 5. The whole mystery of like the dual towers and whatnot. I couldn't
Mhm.
help but think of Monogatari like the entire time. I was just like,
Oh.
I would have preferred to see it done in a much different style, and I think that would have made it more enjoyable. I gotta give it to them for being unique and creating their own style, but there was just so many different things where I was like, oh, well, this I think I would have enjoyed more in a different way.
That's really interesting, because I personally, in particular with movie 5, I felt like all of the beats were kind of hit. I think there are other points in the films where it may not have been like absolutely perfect. I mean, there are examples in like movie one of things that I feel like were just kind of weirdly communicated or weirdly done, for example. But movie 5, I felt like for me hit every single beat of what I wanted from that mystery. Like in particular with I just like how it keeps looping in on itself and jumping back through the same scenes in such a way as to communicate them from like different angles and kind of keep you aware of how time is moving in the movie, but also it's still confusing as hell.
Sure, yeah.
And so it kind of makes the movie this like chaotic mystery in and of itself, which goes along with just how confusing it is for all the characters involved, which I think is getting back into what Senris was talking about, which I think is, of you kind of being put into Shiki's head for the first 4 films. I think in the case of movie 5, for me, it was putting you into this just absolute madness that this building was creating. But yeah, I guess, so for movie 7, I get how that feels really anticlimactic, because it kind of is, especially given, like, just how like weird the villain is in comparison to like Arya Soren is the main villain of the series, and then Leo is just kind of there. He's not as engaging or anything like that. But what I think was really cool about that is that Kara no Kyoukai, for me, is a show that chooses to give its characters immense importance and then understate them consistently. And that's what I like about Shiki, that she is that it kind of subverts a lot of action tropes, and that she is this character that is exceptionally powerful, would be capable of doing things in the world on a massively global scale, but just doesn't, because that's not what she cares about.
Yeah.
I've said in the past, I've described the series as a romance disguised as a psychological thriller.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the relationship between Shiki and Mikia is like the most important thread, and is what the entire series is about, and is why like the climax of the plot happens in movie 5, and then you have 2 left over to like finish the relationship thread. Mikia, like, I know I've been critical of him before, but I want to stress that I don't think he's a bad character, just not an interesting one. I think he plays the role that he's meant to really well, and I think that role is very simply just to represent like the good side of Shiki and what Shiki aspires to. So to me, the ending, like the real climax of Karu no Kyoukai, especially of movie 7, is the moment when Shiki. Okay, let me back up a bit. I think the message of Karu no Kyoukai 7 is the similarities and differences between Mikia and Leo. Mikia represents like this kind of like self-sacrificing, unconditional like love and affection, and wants Shiki to like be the best person she can be, and is like there to support her and everything. Leo, on the other hand, is like obsessive, all-consuming. Doesn't like. He wants Shiki, but he wants Shiki like formed after his own image. Like he does all of his murderers because he knows that Shiki has like the murderous impulse, and he thinks that like if she sees this enough death, then it will like bring out the impulses in her, and she'll become just like he is. And the internal conflict within Shiki is between her desire to be like the good, warm, loving person that Mikia thinks she is, and the Shirazumi like cold, emotionless killer that she fears she is.
Right.
So
right.
That's all Mikia is to me, is just like something for Shiki to aspire to.
I personally find him to be interesting in his own right. As I think that he's more of a character. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like prescribing stuff to him more than actually like seeing things that are actually there. But I kind of feel like he does have aspects to his character outside of his relationship to Shiki, even though that is the single most important thing. And again, we're seeing this from the perspective of Shiki. I think that as a person, especially after this rewatch, he is kind of this this being kind of dedicated to the truth of things, and in a classic Tenatsuverse style, a very conceptual sense. He's not necessarily the smartest individual or anything like that, but he's dedicated to truth in the sense that that he's always just kind of capable of divining it. Like no matter the situation, and that's what he always seeks, regardless of whether or not he intends to be moving in that direction. But regardless, I do think that Shiki is the more interesting character here, and this is more about her. So I agree with you on that front.
But Shirazumi Leo is literally like a dark reflection of Shiki. He looks just like her, he dresses like her,
yeah,
and everything.
For sure.
So if he is meant as a like counterpart to Mikia, like in her mind, then if he's her dark side, then Mikia, like it naturally follows, is her good side.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this also gets back to the memory stuff that I was saying before, is like super important to understanding the series, is that Shiki doesn't remember like the initial killing spree from movie 2. And she assumes that it was her who committed all of the murders.
Yeah.
And then she lost capital Shiki. So then later, when movie 7 starts up, and I think the first scene of this movie is awesome, because it parallels the first scene of the first movie really well, where like Mikia comes in like to her apartment, talks to her,
and they have like a little bit of a conversation, and she's so much more cheery, and like she tells him that like he asks what she had been up to today, and she said like she had actually like gone to college and like taken part in classes, and it shows that she's like engaging with the world and like coming back out of her shell and being a complete person. And then the murders start showing up, just like they did however many years ago, the murders that she assumed she was responsible for. So she has to go investigate and find out what's going on. And when she does, she comes across this person who looks exactly like her committing these murders. And like psychologically, the effect has to be that like this is male murderous Shiki, like reincarnated.
Mhm.
Right.
So the conflict is literally between her and her murderous impulse.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I agree with that. So, that I hadn't considered that, but then also, is killing Leo then also semi-representative of her killing the murderous side of herself in that like finally, in that sense? Because there's always kind of the discussion, of course, in like movie 2 of her constantly killing like Shiki, that's actually really interesting.
That question, I think, is really open to interpretation, and I don't really have one specifically that I am sure is right. I think the significance there is that, like, that's the only time in the entire series that Shiki ever actually kills anybody.
Yeah.
And Leo's goal was to have her kill him.
Right.
Because that would mean like she had given into her murderous impulse and like she was lost. So I don't think it's supposed to be meant as like a good thing. Like this is Shiki killing the murderous side of herself. That's supposed to be like a low moment for her.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But in terms of like what it represents overall, right?
I think the significance though is then that Mikia like crawls up from where Leo left him to die.
Yeah.
And he like gives her a hug. And like she apologizes and said like, you told me to promise I wouldn't kill him, but I did it anyway. And all he says in that scene is just that he forgives her for doing it. And I think that's the significance, is that act of forgiveness is Shiki's desire to be good, pardoning herself for the existence of the darker side of her personality. And that, like, it's okay that exists, and she can acknowledge it and still move on. And by that accepting both sides of herself into, like, a single person, it finally finishes the trauma she's been experiencing since she lost male Shiki, of not feeling like a complete person. Like, she can have both sides of herself and be a human and not be in conflict or trying to fill up some missing aspect of herself.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Since we don't have that much longer that Fate can be on, is there anything else anyone really wants to say about movie 7 before we start moving on into a short talk about like the extra stuff and then overall impressions?
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, Steve, you go.
I guess just final comments on one of the bigger criticisms I had on it is that although this holds for the series as a whole, I felt that 7 kind of went above and beyond in terms of trying too hard, so to speak. And that's going to be different from person to person depending on your level of investment. However, because my level of investment was so low, it just kind of everything happened, and I was like, okay, well, that was a thing, but it was trying so hard to impress me, and it didn't. So
right,
the difference there was extreme.
I definitely think the philosophical dialogue, especially the bits that come out of Toko's mouth, can be a little much.
Yeah.
Toko says a lot of things that like normal human beings would never say, either out of like sheer intelligence or out of like shame of saying something.
So for me personally, what I appreciate about Karen no Kyoukai almost is that it feels a little bit unmoored from reality at times. Like it's that people say things that people would never say. I kind of see it as a show that has like a lot of layers to it, but isn't just over the top and campy almost. For how dark it is, it's kind of a campy show. And I kind of enjoy it in that sense of like it takes itself way too seriously 24/7, and that's kind of all right because that's part of its charm.
And it does have the chops to actually back it up when it needs to.
Exactly. Like it is taking itself 110% seriously at every given moment, and has these like soliloquy-esque like rants at times from just like these weird things, but it also does have enough depth to not be stupid for cranking everything up to 11. Is kind of how I personally viewed it. So yeah. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Steve. Like I know a lot of other people who weren't like nearly as much fans of movie 7, and it really liking movie 7 I feel like is very much contingent on how much you liked the rest of the series, and particularly the relationship.
Just one last thing on the subject of the relationship, in case anybody here is unaware. The voice actors for Shiki and Mikia actually started dating during the production of the movies and
What?
are married.
Right, I had heard that, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
knew they were married. I didn't know they started dating during the production. That's
Yep.
fucking neat.
So that's some organic chemistry on screen there.
I did
Yeah,
not know
that's
that.
cool.
I did not know. I really love like Maya Sakamoto as a voice actress. Like she's freaking fantastic.
Shiki's
So-
voice is the best thing.
Yeah.
Like her range is absolutely incredible, from like Shinobu in Monogatari to Shiki to even Jean in Fate Apocrypha, which was a thing. But like the voice, like her, it's definitely different voices and very impressive to hear. So.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the other films before we kind of go over for overall impressions. So we've got the epilogue, movie 8, and then extra chorus after movie 8. The epilogue is a lore dump. It's disguised as a conversation, but it's a lore dump. I don't know why they named it an epilogue, because it's really not an epilogue.
There's not even that much change of scenes. Like, they cut the camera maybe every, like, minute, but it's just a conversation. That's all it is.
Yeah, and so it's interesting for what it is. If you're
If you're into the lore, then it's really important and really interesting. If you're not, don't bother watching it.
Yeah, but pretty
There's
much.
literally
I mean,
nothing
even
there
if you're
for you.
even if you are like semi into the lore, there's not that much different from watching that movie and reading a synopsis of that movie. Like I don't know. Like for me, I feel like I might have enjoyed it more if I knew what it was going to be going in. But I was like, oh, there's an epilogue to this show, and then it was just kind of that. So yeah, I was expecting more Karen no Kyoukai, which is what I got in movie 8 and extra course at the very least.
Yes.
Which
Yes,
I feel like is
definitely.
the true epilogue.
Mhm.
In particular, the second act of movie 8, which kind of shifts away from Bomberman's story to like
Yes.
mana and all of that stuff.
So yeah, for me it was really interesting. So I watched 1 through 7, and then I was like kind of burned out, so I never watched the epilogue or Mirai Fukuin or extra course until like actually today in anticipation of this movie. And I was surprised by how much I liked Mirai Fukuin.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny too, because like as I said, I played Fate Grand Order, and then seeing like this one of the craft essences or like things that were relevant in the event was called Summer Precognition, and it had what's her face, the girl who
I don't remember her name either.
yeah, she I mean like she was a very forgettable character, but I was
Asuka's
like, oh,
roommate.
like yes, she was on the card, and I was like, oh, like I don't remember seeing this person in Kara no Kyoukai, and then
Yeah.
I was and then I was like, oh, that's fun. But like it was a lot of fun, and it was nice to see like them doing like more adventures once that whole mystery had been resolved. So like seeing them once they had been completely fleshed out, which is not a thing you get to see in a lot of franchises, because like usually you see them until they're fully developed and then it's done. But
Yeah,
this was like, yeah.
And so I feel like
Bomberman thing was-
movie 8 is completely unnecessary, but I love it for that fact because it's just fan service and it's good fan service.
Yes.
So yeah, there's not that much to add. You get to see like Shiki's daughter, which is cool. You get to kind of have a nice little flashback into like with the fortune teller thing, which and all of that I felt was just nice played back in. And like extra chorus, you had like the cat story, which is just all all fluff, but it's
10
all
out of
fluff,
10
but
for
it's
the
nice
cat
fluff.
story alone.
Yeah.
Shiki
Yeah.
taking care of a cat was something I never knew I needed to see until I saw it.
They
Yeah,
were
right.
so similar. I was like, okay, like I see it. Like Shiki is like so defensive about the cat. I was like, okay, I get this cat metaphor. I see what you're doing here. No, yeah, it kind of reminded me, like you said, ultimate fan service movie. I totally agree. It kind of felt like the Sword Art Online movie to me in that same way, where it was just like, here's something nice for the fans. Thank you for sticking through us through all that. Here's something that you would all really appreciate. Like seeing older Shiki was really fun.
Yeah.
And then, man, like I really wish they had told us who Mana's dad was. Like I cannot,
No idea.
cannot for the life of me imagine anyone who has such a strong harem protagonist skill that even his daughter loves him. Like, I cannot. There was not a single guy in the show that I can think of who would be Shiki's husband.
Yeah, I know, and
And-
it's such a specific description too. You'd think like they have the whole thing about having like one eye and like all of this other stuff. Like
Right.
like they've got to be referring to someone very exact, but like clearly they didn't spend that much time in the show.
My money is on Enjo Tomoe from movie 5 after he fell apart. He put himself back together, but like one of the eyes got crushed in the debris, so.
I mean, you only need to put part of yourself back together to make it count.
Jesus.
Oh man.
Oh man. But yeah, it was really sweet. Mono was really sweet. I was like, is this really Shiki's daughter?
I know that I said Asuka was best girl, but I think Mana might be best girl.
Mana is a
Steve,
cutie.
I
so
just want you
cute.
to know if you were okay. If you were going in a different direction, I'd
No,
be like, you're
it's
lucky
more
you're in Canada
Daughter
and not
than waifu. Let's just be clear on that.
Oh, no. She was wearing a really freaking like short skirt for like I am assuming like an 8-year-old.
I think she's 10, was she not?
Maybe.
No, yeah.
Something like that.
But in any case, it is very. I was like, but also like seeing older Shiki was crazy fun. Where
Yeah.
like she like posts
Yeah.
up and like you just see her face and you're like, oh shit, like she knows.
I mean, I also think it's cool because we get Shiki, like with Bomberman and stuff, you get Shiki from an outside perspective from the first time because you're either seeing Shiki from the perspective of her or Makia, who are both fucking weirdos in their own light, and Bomberman, for being Bomberman, is a relatively normal dude. And seeing just kind of like how he interacts to and reacts with Shiki, I very much appreciated.
Imagine a show where being a mass murderer and like an explosive expert makes you a relatively normal human being.
Yeah, that's Kyoukai. Oh man, yeah, being a bomber and a mass murderer makes you a relatively normal dude in the show. That should be the new fucking synopsis.
Yes. Also, like that backflip on the bridge, like that was fucking badass, Shiki.
The fight in the parking garage between Shiki and the bomber is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
it,
is.
And that's also the scene that like drives home just how fucking busted the Mystic Eyes of Death perception
Oh,
are.
yeah.
Like she cuts
his-
through his ability to see the future.
She's just like, oh, here's that thing, and just like slices it. And you're like, what?
Yo, fuck the rules.
but I almost think that that's cool in terms of what it represents for Bomberman because he can see the future and it's trapping him. He feels trapped in this in this path towards like death, and I really like the I really like the end of just completely cutting and destroying the future that he previously had, and thereby just killing his power. Yeah, Shiki's fucking busted. But
Also, Mikia is fucking busted with his harem protagonist skills. Like, he sees that one girl off the bus stop for like 2 seconds, and like she's immediately, I am in
Sure, but
love.
like that one's less unique, right? You get that enough, so.
yeah.
Also, like, he was like, yes, you're going to order the orange pie. She's like, oh my gosh, I am flooding this restaurant right now. Yeah, it was fun though. And then like the Fujino thing was really fun too. Like, even though she's blind, she's like still wrecking shit.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they gave Fujino like a personal epilogue there.
Yeah, that was nice to have. I appreciated just about everything in that. Like none of it's necessary to enjoy the show, but all of it was just kind of fun as a fan of the show.
Yeah. I was really confused at first, like why in Fate Grand Order, Fujino is like one of the servants you can play as. I was like, this girl was in literally one of those 7 movies. Like, why is she deemed important enough? And then I was like, oh, like she's still back in the last movie, so that was nice.
Yeah, and it's very clear that she's kind of becoming something in her own right. I'm not sure what she's doing, but clearly she's like, I'm gonna save this girl from committing suicide. That's
right.
That's a positive thing.
So she's using her power to rip apart bridges to put good into the world, I guess.
When you can only do so much while ripping bridges apart, like
yeah, I mean, maybe she saw it and was like, oh wow, this is a situation where I could set up if I ripped this bridge apart. This is my one opportunity.
If she just like went around Japan ripping down every single bridge, then nobody could jump off bridges anymore.
Also, I loved how like when in the very last one when it's like I'm presuming New Year's, and then Shiki's like, "Oh, your family was okay with this," and Miki's like, "Yeah." Asuka was like, kind of not happy, but it's fine. And like it cuts to her like on the subway station, like screaming at a phone.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I don't hate what Asuka is in the show, because she does just kind of get shit on, and I find that like partially hilarious.
Asuka's hatred for Shiki is so funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. It was a nice cap. It was weird because I was like, oh, I want to rate this like pretty highly, but I was like, can I rate this highly than some of the other movies when it's pure fan service? So it was it was a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, I just rate the series as a whole because I gave up on trying to figure out where all the things like fall for me, and they change all the time in terms of like which movies I like more.
Yeah, it's hard for me.
You guys all use Mal primarily, I assume, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I actually don't have any of these movies individually at a 10. I think I have 4 of them at 9s. But the series as a whole, I would say is a 10. Easily.
Yeah,
it is definitely more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I just have Karen and Kyoukai as the entire series rated as a 9 because I'm dickish in my ratings and I only allow myself one show at a 10. Just as like the cap. But it's tied with a couple of other shows for my second favorite anime of all time as a series.
Okay.
I am much lower on the spectrum than you guys are. I think overall the series is like a 7.5 to me. But like it's one of those things where like if I was to rate it on its potential versus its realized actions, it'd be like different, right? Because I think like the potential was there, but I think the way like how long it took and the way it got there was not the greatest execution. But like of course like you know even Nasu said like the books weren't the greatest execution of what he wanted to realize.
Nasu is a terrible writer who has really good ideas.
I think that's the best description of him.
Yeah, he's basically the George Lucas of anime.
That's honestly a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's distressingly accurate.
Like how brilliant of a idea is like the Fate universe, right?
Yeah.
Like, Holy Grail Wars, like bringing these, and then you have like Fate Route, right? So like,
and then you have Fate Route, which has a couple of moments that shine as fucking brilliant, but there's so much that's just like,
it's
come on.
It's like you had 90% of what would make you like a brilliant writer, and then the follow through just not there. Like he can drive it, like to use a golfing analogy, because so many golfers also watch anime, but like he can't like putt it in, you know, like once you get onto the the putting greens. Yeah, no, it's yeah. I also heard like so I haven't read Tsukihime, but like after going through this Chronological Kyoukai rewatch is actually made me interested in reading through the visual novel, although I've been told to just like read one of the manga like adaptations because it's not worth reading Tsukihime. But
I enjoyed what of Tsukihime I read personally. I haven't been able to finish it because since I updated to Windows 10 it literally won't run on my computer and I need to figure out a way to fix that. But I enjoyed what I read of Tsukihime. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, like, so many people have said such good things about the Tsukihime anime adaptation that I might just watch that
God. I've only heard the horror stories, but...
I also think Nasu is perfectly paired with Takashi Takeuchi, who's
Yes!
the main artist for Fate. In that, just like Nasu has great ideas but is a terrible writer, Takeuchi is an incredible character designer but a horrible artist.
Well, he got better. Like, his designs for Fate Grand Order have been good. Like, his
He
art for
has improved over the years.
But, like,
But his
I love
early art
Takeuchi
is
because...
so bad.
I love Takeuchi because he loves Saber as much as I do, to the point where like everything has a Saber face.
He refuses to draw any characters but Saber.
I know it's great. He apparently draws a Saber a day. So, like when
claim
he
it.
Jesus.
when he dies, we're just going to be blessed with all these unpublished Sabers. But no, like his designs in Kara no Kyoukai, because he did the designs for Kara no Kyoukai. If I'm
Yes, he did.
Because Shiki also has like a very familiar
Oh
face.
my god, Shiki's character design is so good. I can't.
I
Like,
love the
point to
jacket with the
anything about
kimono. It's
Yeah.
so good.
How is it as good as it is? It doesn't make sense. But it's so iconic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's such a good design. Yeah. No, it's I like her in Mirai Fukuin. She only wears it for like 5 minutes, right? The pink kimono with like the hair all done up as well. Like, what the heck? Like, you can't just use that for 5 minutes. That is a character design worth of its own movie. What the hell are you doing holding that out from us?
There is this one anime called Kanon. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It is by Nasu and Takeuchi. It's the only thing they've ever written that's not part of like the Type Moon universe.
I started to watch it.
The main character is literally Shiki with white hair. They look identical.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I started to watch it like half because of that, to be honest. I never like actually got through it. I enjoyed like the beginning of it well enough, but
is that the one by PA Works?
I don't actually know.
Maybe.
Yeah. Did you watch all of it, Senris?
No, I haven't. I just know that fact, and it's hilarious because it just drives home how Takeuchi only knows how to draw 3 characters.
Yeah, true.
There's also a great conspiracy theory where that like Kinoko Nasu is actually a woman and Takeuchi is in love with Nasu, and like Fate Grand Order's story is like a self-insert of them.
I do actually like the theory that Nasu is a woman.
Yeah. Cause Nasu ever been seen in public?
Nope.
Right? And like Kinoko is like with the ko is normally a woman's name.
Yeah.
And Nasu also does a lot of play with like gender in terms of, I mean, specifically with like Shiki and Shiki, but
Ooh, conspiracy theories on the R Anime podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does make enough rational sense that I wouldn't even reject that idea.
Yeah. And he was also very much influenced by Revolutionary Girl Utena, but although, like, to be honest, like, who in
wasn't?
Japan in, like, this sphere was not, influenced by Revolutionary Girl Utena?
Oh, speaking of influences, there was one more I wanted to point out. Has everyone here seen Perfect Blue?
Yes.
Yes.
I have no actual evidence for this, but I'm convinced that Nasu wrote the entire Kara no Kyoukai in like one day after watching Perfect Blue. Because
Sorry, come
Perfect
again.
Blue came out in 1997, and then
Okay.
the first Kara no Kyoukai book came out in 1998. And
Okay.
in
Ah!
theme and everything, they are so similar with the idea of like the woman who's not sure whether or not she's a murderer, like losing her sense of identity
Yeah.
and the whole thing.
I
There's
can
even-
see it as a
There's
massive
even
Perfect Blue
there's
fan.
even yes,
Ooh.
but there is
I
even
want that to be true.
an older detective woman character in Perfect Blue named Toko.
Oh, you're right. Fuck, you're right. God damn it!
How did you leave
busted
this
my
till the
brain.
end?
That-
Oh my gosh, what the? What?
That was not a connection I expected here.
So, yeah, I'm happy you made that, because, like, Perfect Blue is also one of my favorite anime of all time, along with Kara no Kyoukai. Like,
Yeah.
damn, good fucking catch, my dude.
Next, you're gonna
Thank
tell
you.
me Millennium Actress was the influence behind Fate Stay Night.
God damn.
That's
Well, they are
crazy.
kind of both about absurdist enjoyment of reality, like, you could kind
Oh.
No.
That's what? Okay, that's insane. I wish I could come up with good conspiracy theories like that. That's awesome, Synris. The best one I've ever come up was that like K-On! Was a government-driven initiative to increase the birth rate.
I mean, that's a conspiracy behind everything, though. Every single anime.
One other connection with the Perfect Blue is how the whole like Mima murder mind break stuff happens after her rape scene in her drama, which is basically the exact same thing that happens to Fujino.
Yeah. Fuck, dude. You are blowing my mind right now.
This is crazy. And in Perfect Blue, they also... No, never mind. There was no people eating in Perfect Blue.
I mean, that was in the background. You know it had to be happening.
Oh, how else did that one woman get so fat?
God damn it.
Literally eating idols. Oh, wait! Oh, Perfect Blue spoilers, but, like, she even, like, does the thing where she, like, wears... so obsessed with...
That she wears the clothes! Oh, I didn't think of that!
Oh, yeah, you're fucking right. No, you have to be right.
We're putting this together.
We're
This is
putting
real.
this together. This is actually right. You guys have convinced me over the course of these past, like, 5 minutes.
That's
that-
100% true. Oh,
Yeah.
I will accept no other reality.
No, I believe this now. Like, I 100% feel like it is rational to believe this theory. Thank you. Thank you so much, Synris.
Alright, I think on that note, we have to wrap this up.
Yeah.
We can't go beyond that.
No, we can't do any better than that.
No.
That was
was amazing.
great.
You guys are currently experiencing a taste of my entire life, which is just slowly losing myself in the wormhole of Type Moon stuff.
I mean, your avatar, your picture for this podcast is perfect for that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, so with that, let's get in here. Is there anything that people want to say for like final thoughts on Kara no Kyoukai as a series before we completely wrap up?
So, in
go
Fate
ahead.
Grand Order, Shiki has an art where it's literally just her in that like button-down white shirt and nothing else. And my goodness, Takeuchi, you do know how to draw women in shirts and nothing else.
Yeah, it's the ice cream eating scene.
And she's also eating ice cream, which is nice.
Yeah.
If only I could eat ice cream as sexily as Shiki could.
Real quick, what was your guys' favorite ED? Or do you have one?
Ooh,
Sprinter.
that's a good question.
Sprinter.
Sprinter, yeah.
Sprinter's a good one, yeah.
I really
I
like
think Fairy Tail
Kizaoto.
for me.
Yeah.
I
Also,
don't-
how...
I'm not
Rip
actually sure.
Calafina.
Uh-huh.
There are just so many tracks on that I really, really like. Sprinter is obviously great. I really like Kizaoto. I can't remember if this is an ED just because I listen to the soundtracks more than I watch the movies. But Kimi na Hikari ga Kaite Iku or whatever, the fucking long titled one I really like.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, man, that's a hard call. Fucking rain check on that question.
I like
Ooh.
how 90% of the soundtrack for the whole series is that one track, like, remixed into
Oh,
different
the...
styles.
But I actually really like that as how they kind of incorporate these central themes into different styles. I really like it when shows kind of have themes that are supposed to evoke certain things that you kind of get so that they do a really good job of kind of setting the tone with that.
Right.
And
Yeah, they do a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
variations with that, like, Shiki theme.
Mhm.
Because it's a really simple thing, right? It's the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But, like, there's that one where it's, like, a very, like, slow choral, like, very... And it almost feels, like, very cold. You know the one I'm talking about with, like, the
Yeah,
slow piano?
There's the one in movie 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, like... It's a completely different tone, right? Because, like, it's usually used in, like, the hype action-y parts, like in movie 5, and then it's used in such a slow moment that it's, like, it's done very well, the variations.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
It is
Anyway.
a tragedy that Calafina is breaking up.
It's so
Oh,
sad.
don't
But
remind me.
we still have Yuki Kaijura, so
That's
that'll
true.
still be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But also, like, you could honestly, like, I love Calafina, right?
Oh,
You could
yeah.
honestly play, like, one of their songs and, like, remix it a little bit, and it'll sound like all their others.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's...
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I feel like they've gotten more samey over time, because I feel like initially, like, you had stuff like Kara no Kyoukai was kind of separate. Like, I feel like Madoka Magica had stuff that was, like, very kind of unique, and Calafina has slowly gotten to more, like, I don't know,
Yeah, once they hit Fate
doing-
Zero, like everything sounds like the Fate Zero OP, and also
Yeah.
tying it back to the Sword Art Online movie, like one of the plot points is that the idol sings, but the idol sings like all Calafina songs, and they're one of the characters is like, "Oh, it's one of her new songs." I was like, literally, how can you tell?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish they did have more variation, because I think like early Calafina stuff was more varied before they just kind of started doing the Fate Zero soundtrack over and over again.
Man, I'm so happy I haven't seen Fate now, because it's all new to me.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing quite like watching Fate Zero for the first time.
Yeah, ooh man, that's a trip. I
All in
highly
due
recommend
time.
it.
Like watching for like Fate Zero was the first entry into the Nasuverse for me, and not knowing, first of all, who like that Saber existed, and being a huge fan of like Saber's identity, like before watching anime. Like that last like scene of Fate Zero just like absolutely blew my mind. That's probably the reason why I love Fate so much, and like Nasu. Like that one moment has lasted him so much like leeway in my life.
That's very fair. Personally, I'm gonna we're getting off topic here, but I never loved Saber, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, same.
Fine.
Alright, we need to wrap this up
anyway.
though. We can talk about this off the air.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Fucking Becker will probably edit in plugging things after this. Thank you guys for all watching the Our Anime podcast.
Remember to
it was-
subscribe. If you want to sign up as a guest, you can do that. Join our Discord. It's where we have all these memes and discussions. Also, Sinris and Steve, thank you guys so much for coming on. Especially like Steve, especially since like 17 was so ready to shit on your opinion. And then we started off with Bex shitting on your taste for Ready Player One. Like, you've
There
endured
was
a lot.
less shit than I expected, yeah. Well,
And
thank
then-
you
We
very
tried
much
to be
for having
polite.
me.
And then Sinris, thank you for blowing our minds with that conspiracy theory. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
God
know
damn,
how I'm
dude.
gonna...
Welcome to my universe.
Alright. With that, thank you everyone for listening. And,
Peace.
See you all next time.
Bye bye.